So I have a special job today. My job is to tell you about what is an official community plan, what is the process we're taking to develop the official community plan, and what have we heard so far from the community members. So in a nutshell, an official community plan is a land use bylaw that sets out the long-term vision for the community. So there's lots of different kinds of plans. An official community plan is special because it's strategic, it doesn't go into a lot of detail, and it's comprehensive. So it talks about a lot of different topics, all the different topics that have to do with land use. We're including policy that relates to everything from the environment, agriculture, transportation, community well-being, and many other topics. And it all fits together with many other kinds of plans that we have at the City of Burnaby. As Mayor Hurley said earlier this morning, the official community plan is really important because all of the other bylaws, the zoning bylaw, the other strategies and policies that the city develops need to be consistent with the vision that we've set out in the official community plan. They should all be working towards that vision that is articulated in the OCP. An official community plan is defined by the provincial government. They tell us in the Local Government Act what really needs to both be in that official community plan, and they also give us some options about what could be in the official community plan that we're not required to have. So here are some of the things we need to have in an official community plan. We need to articulate how are we going to meet the anticipated housing needs for at least the next 5 years. We need to talk about land use. So how are we going to use the different parts of our city? Where are we going to build homes? Where are we going to have places of employment, places to recreate, and so on? We need to talk about public facilities like schools and wastewater treatment sites and parks and all those different kinds of public facilities. We need to talk about infrastructure planning, so things like roads and sewers and the water system. We need to have housing policy. This is really, really important to have policy around affordable housing, rental housing, special needs housing, and so forth. And we need to set our own targets for the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions. We're going to do more than this in Burnaby 2050, but this is the minimum that we need to do according to the Local Government Act. Okay. So we have an official community plan. It was adopted in 1998. And since that time, it has helped the City of Burnaby to become the wonderful place to live that it is today. It's helped shape the growth that we've experienced since 1998 and helped us to protect what we value as Burnaby residents. But as the mayor said, the world is changing, the city is changing, and we know there's many challenges as well as opportunities coming our way. And that is why Council directed staff in 2022 to initiate the development of a new official community plan. And at that time, we identified a number of important changes we wanted to make or updates we needed to have in this new official community plan. We need to bring in some important planning tools. One is a parcel-based land use map for the whole city. Another one is something called a development permit area guideline. Those are going to help us do better planning as we go forward. We know we need to modernize policy across all the topics, but especially when it comes to things like climate change and reconciliation. And we have a new regional growth strategy called Metro 2050, and we know we need to respond to that as well. So we began this process in 2022, and at that time, we broke the process up into 4 different phases. That first phase started in 2022, we called it surfacing. And at that time, we just got out into the community and asked people, what do you love about living in Burnaby? What's so great about living in Burnaby? And let people know that we were starting this process. We heard so many wonderful things about Burnaby, and we came back in 2023 to engage with the community for the visioning phase. I'm going to talk about what we learned in just a moment. We're almost done that visioning phase. We're about to move into phase 3, which is where we're starting to put pen to paper and starting to draft our strategic directions, the policies that we need to have in order to achieve that draft vision. In phase 4, in 2025, we'll come back to the community with a draft of the OCP, and we'll say, what do you think? Did we hear you correctly? Can you confirm that this is the future you want to work towards? So that's the process in a nutshell. My next slide here gives you a little bit more information. So we've broken it up into the 2 years now, year and a half. We're all working towards that blue target of summer 2025 of bringing a final version of the OCP to council for their consideration of adoption. That's what we're all working towards. We've got a lot of engagement we need to do. Those are indicated in the blue boxes there. We are going to do this community assembly process. That's in the yellow box. In the white and in the pink, I've indicated some of the technical work that our team is doing in the background. So we're drafting, we're preparing maps, we're doing technical analysis around things like employment lands and hazards and social infrastructure. We're doing lots and lots of research, and I can talk about that a little bit later. But all of this work is going to culminate in the development of a document, which we will bring to council for them to consider in the summer of 2025. So in 2023, last summer, we had the second phase of engagement. We came out to the community in May and June and July, and we talked to people and we listened to people and we asked people, what is your vision for the future of Burnaby? What are your hopes? And what are your priorities? We used a lot of different methods for getting in touch with people. You may have participated in something like our visioning dialogue events. We had evenings, one of them was in this room here, where people were sharing a meal and talking to their neighbors about the future of Burnaby. We were out at events across the city. You might have seen us at Hats Off Day or Canada Day. We met with community partners and had focused discussions with nonprofit groups and regional agencies like TransLink and the health authorities, experts, small businesses. We spoke with faith-based organizations to hear about their particular perspectives and concerns. And we also had an online survey with a social media campaign. You might have seen our video. We did our best to get out there, and we heard so many interesting things from the community. We brought all of that information back, 20,000 different comments, transcribed all of those little sticky notes, and we prepared something called a What We Learned report. If you are interested, that is on our website, and if you want to hear more about what the community said, you can have a look at the What We Learned report. I'm going to summarize it for you in the next 3 slides here. So, when we asked participants, what do you value most about living in Burnaby? They told us four things over and over again. They said they value access to parks and green space, local walkability, having a sense of community, and having access to transit. When we asked people about their hopes for the future of Burnaby, they told us they're hoping for more affordable housing options, for safer active transportation infrastructure like sidewalks, bicycle lanes. They're hoping for greater access to health and community services and better access to amenities like swimming pools and parks, community centers. And then a few themes came up over and over and over again. And here are some of those themes. We heard a lot about parks and the natural environment and how highly valued they are for Burnaby residents. We heard about how residents want to live in more complete communities where you have easier access to your daily needs, like taking your kids to school or picking up some groceries or going for a coffee. We heard a lot about safety, so concerns around both personal security and safety on the roads. And we heard about health. We heard about health and healthcare services. So both having the doctors and the hospitals and the clinics in your neighborhood, as well as living in a neighborhood that allows you to be healthy, where you have access to the ability to walk or not have pollution in your community. Some of the other themes that we heard about was climate change. We heard a lot about how residents want to see action on climate change from their city. We heard that residents want to see the infrastructure and the services that the city provides to keep pace with population growth. We heard so much about housing. We heard about how that lack of affordable housing options and housing choice are affecting residents in all their different aspects of city life. And we heard about transportation. Residents really want to see safer and more sustainable ways to get around the city. So we studied all of that information, and we have been working over the last few months to start drafting some policy directions and a vision statement for the future of Burnaby. The vision statement for painting the picture for what we want Burnaby to look like by the year 2050. And I'm bringing to you today a few draft versions. I know you're going to be working a little bit on this over the course of your deliberations. Here are some of the draft vision statements that we've been working on, and we'll be coming to the community in the third phase of engagement this spring to ask them what they think. What do you think is the best articulation of the vision statement for Burnaby 2050? So that is all I have to share with you today. Really looking forward to hearing more about what you have to say about the future of Burnaby, your hopes and your concerns. And I really do want to thank you for taking this time out of your lives to help us write a really strong official community plan for the city of Burnaby. Thank you.
As I said, we're going to have time for an interactive activity before Anne comes up and gives her presentation. But before that, we have about 10 minutes to have a question and answer. If anybody has a question for Erin. Okay, I'll bring them up. And please share your first name if you feel so inclined, and then your question.
My name is Avalon, and I'm wondering, I wasn't entirely clear just how binding is the community plan to what the representatives have to, when they're making their decisions, just how closely do they have to follow the plan? Because maybe the residents of Burnaby say we want more action on climate change, but then the politicians are like, but that's hard. And how much can they get away with, like, not doing what it says in the plan if it's too hard?
Great question. Thank you, Avalon. One thing I'll start with is to let you know an official community plan is intended to be a living document. So it's a long-term plan. We know things are going to change over the decades, and so we'll make sure we have an amendment process built in so that if we need to pivot as a city, we can amend the official community plan and change the wording so that it can respond to emerging needs. So that's one thing. Amendments do happen on a pretty regular basis. It's usually for specific sites. City council might make a decision that, this piece of land was intended for employment and now we want to use it for a mix of housing and employment. That's an example of an amendment the city council might choose to make. On the other hand, while the official community plan sets out the long-term vision and where we want to go as a city, it doesn't commit the city to doing anything specific. So it is not required necessarily to build that facility or put that road there. Nobody is going to necessarily enforce that on the city, but it does give everybody sort of a common pathway that they're working towards. If that helps.
Next question.
Hello, my name is Shervan, and I'm just sort of curious about in what ways does the city work with the provincial and federal governments with the issues that you outlined, such as affordability and I guess climate change.
Great question. Thank you for that. How do we work with other levels of government? A municipality works with other levels of government all the time. These topics that you're talking about, climate change and housing, these are shared responsibilities. And so one of the things we do as planners and as municipalities is work really closely with our counterparts of the provincial government, the federal government, to make sure we're aligned and that make sure everybody is playing their role. So the federal government has a different role to play than a municipality. Municipalities focuses primarily on land use. And when we have a really strong partnership between all levels of government and the host First Nations, we can really achieve great things on all of those topics.
Other questions?
Hi. It's come to my attention lately, I'm getting close to being a senior citizen, and many of my friends are as well. There are opportunities that represent themselves from the governments, local government, federal, provincial government, that they can take advantage of now that there will be soon seniors. A lot of them have no idea that these things represent themselves, and maybe don't go online as someone else might. I'm just wondering if it might be a good idea to get some sort of an afternoon or a specific area and time where you can invite the seniors in the community to let them see, in fact, what opportunities they might be able to get involved in or sign up for.
Great. Yes, I love that idea. What you're talking about, we call equitable engagement. So thinking about how different kinds of people want to engage with the city in different ways based on their needs and their interests and their schedules. And you're right, some people don't spend a lot of time online. So we need to create spaces that make sense for them. So for example, we put a lot of information out on social media and had an online survey, but we also had posters in community centers, and we even did a visioning dialogue event at Confederation Senior Center, for example. But I think you're right, we could do more. We could certainly put together sort of special events targeting, inviting senior citizens in the city of Burnaby to hear about their perspectives.
A couple more questions.
Hi, my name is Vila. And for all your decision, did you project the growth of Burnaby? How the growth is, because that is the impact on your decision making. Did you have a number what the growth is like going to go on the future? Because you cannot plan things if there's no growth, and if you're expecting certain growth, you have to get ready for those changes.
This is a really excellent point. Thank you for bringing this up. So one of the first things we have to do when we're thinking about the future is think about what's our population going to look like. So we do receive that population projection information. We get it from Metro Vancouver, and they have projected that City of Burnaby is going to grow by over 100,000 people by the year 2050. I think it's going to be quite a bit more than 100,000, probably about 120, 130. They're just updating their numbers right now, so we're waiting for a firm number from them. But think,
usually you'll make allowance where they say 100,000, you would project that the growth would be higher than that, right?
yes, exactly. So they put together a high growth scenario and a medium growth and a low growth scenario so that we can plan somewhere in that range. But we know it's going to be about 100,000 additional people, and that is a combination of new babies who are born here and people who are moving here. So people who are moving from other cities, other parts of the province, and other parts of the country and the world. And so they're taking information from Census and Stats BC and putting it all together in a model to come up with really strong numbers, and they're updating them on a very regular basis. That gives us the information to be able to say, we know we're going to need about 55,000 new homes by the year 2050, and about 50,000 new jobs are going to be created in the city of Burnaby. So one of the things we're doing on our team is thinking about, okay, what do we need to do to be ready for those people? Where are they going to live? Where should we focus that housing growth? Where should we focus that employment growth? What do we need to do for our city services and our parks and infrastructure, the pipes under the ground, in order to be ready for that growth so we're not caught off guard?
One more question.
Hi, my name is Jess.
And my question is, you touched on it a little bit during your presentation, but can you expand a little bit more on what the limitations of the official community plan is and what kind of topics we don't really try to resolve? Because we see what residents of Burnaby are concerned with, what we want to see, but what are the things that we're not really looking at here?
Yeah, that is an excellent question. So be thinking about in your deliberation, jurisdiction. So municipal jurisdiction tends to be focused around land use, how we use the space, local business. We have some powers related to environment. And then there are places where, like I said earlier, we're partnering with other levels of government, or maybe we're advocating to other levels of government, especially around things like housing. Social services, healthcare is a place where we have a small role as a municipality, but that's primarily the job of the provincial government to provide healthcare, for example. So we won't have a lot of influence on that. You could think about how can we support the delivery of healthcare, but not really the actual budgeting for it, for example. Anything international that the federal government would take care of, that's not going to be a part of the official community plan. Monetary policy, the military, things that, Justin Trudeau would be talking about are things that you're not going to see necessarily in official community plan. We could touch on it a little bit, but our focus is primarily things that have to do with land use, transportation, community services, and infrastructure. Oh, Leanne wants to add to that.
This is a really good point, and so don't want to interrupt your flow, but jurisdictional, but also an OCP is directional, and it won't touch on the operational. So the types of things the city does, such as on a lot, how far back should your house be set, or how high, OCP won't talk about those kinds of things. Things like emergency management, we might have principles and directions about it, but coming down to the plan, what happens when we have a heat wave? We have different plans with more specific action. So that's one way to think of it.
Great point. Thanks for adding that.
Okay, so we're at the end of our first presentation. We want to thank Erin very much and for providing all this information. Yeah, let's give Erin a round of applause.